Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a bit different from my usual content, as you've known me to do from time to time. Sometimes I just come across a story that I'm like, what? And I have to cover it, whether it's about space or not. And this is definitely one of those stories, because this story involves Pompeii, an ancient Roman city that was buried by a volcanic eruption nearly 2,000 years ago. And as a kid, Pompeii just fascinated me. I had a couple of books about it with some very dramatic illustrations, and there was always something about the story that just kind of both captivated and horrified me, which is really sort of an unbeatable combination when you're a kid. And a recent discovery in the nearby city of Herculaneum added yet another chapter to this story, because scientists discovered something there that they have never really seen before. So let's get into it. So I'm sure many of you have heard of the story of Pompeii. In 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius in Italy erupted, burying the nearby ancient Roman city of Pompeii and the smaller town of Herculaneum under deadly layers of volcanic ash, pumice, and pyroclastic flows. But the disaster that demolished the two settlements also immortalized them, preserving everything from the shape of the victims' bodies to frescoes in private villas and library scrolls. And I think these unique plaster casts are one of the reasons why Pompeii has fascinated people for so long. They are tough to look at, and it doesn't really take much imagination to understand what these people went through when Vesuvius erupted, and I think it's a really important aspect to this story. I think sometimes history can seem very far away when we're talking about hundreds or even thousands of years, but these casts are very real and unmistakable in what they show, and I think it really humanizes the story of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Something truly frightening happened to these people, and there were lessons to be learned, and I think these casts ensure that we never forget that. And it turns out there is even more to be discovered, even 2,000 years later. So recently, archaeologists discovered the remains of a young man whose brain and parts of his spinal cord had turned into pieces of dark glass. That's right, glass inside his head. And scientists had never seen a glassy, soft tissue in nature before, or really since. And now they think they know how this happened. Now, first, this process has a name. It's called vitrification. And this is basically when something that is liquid or has liquid in it is turned into glass without crystallizing. The young man at the center of this mystery was originally unearthed in the 1960s within a building called College of the Augustulus in Herculaneum, according to Reuters. This was a public building that was dedicated to the worship of Emperor Augustus, and the remains likely belonged to an approximately 20-year-old college custodian who was found in his bed. But in 2020, researchers that were examining the remains discovered that parts of his brain were a shiny material that seemed to be glass. Now, this sparked heated debates, not just about how his brain may have turned to glass, but whether or not this really was glass in the first place. However, a recent study in the journal Scientific Reports supports the 2020 research claiming that the remains are indeed a brain. They found preserved neurons and axons, as well as proteins known to be common in brain tissue. And they concluded that the vitrification was caused by an ash cloud that arrived at Herculaneum before the pyroclastic flows from the volcano. Pyroclastic flows are extremely hot and fast currents of volcanic debris, gas, and air that travel close to the ground, kind of like an ash cloud, but close to the ground. Guido Giordano, a geologist and volcanologist at Roma Tre University in Italy, and other researchers studied this event, and they said an ash cloud is a dilute part of the pyroclastic flow. It's usually formed at the edges, above, and laterally, where most of the material is like an avalanche or landslide, but the peripheral part is of a finer particle ash. These clouds can be hot enough to kill you. Now, part of the debate regarding the glass brain comes from the fact that Herculaneum's pyroclastic flows would not have been hot enough or even allowed for rapid enough cooling to enable the vitrification process. Because even in nature, glass only forms when, in addition to other factors, a liquid can cool quickly enough to avoid the formation of crystals. Giordano told New Scientist, "It's not the heating process that transforms things into glass. The heating process would bake it, would transform it into charcoal, would vaporize it. But it's not going to make it glass. In order to make a glass, you need a fast cooling." So Giordano and his colleagues said that when we realized this was really a glassy brain, the scientific question was, how is this possible? Giordano calculated that the man's brain would have had to reach at least 950 degrees Fahrenheit before cooling quickly, but the pyroclastic flows were known to reach at most 869 degrees Fahrenheit. So the cause must have been something else. Giordano told Popular Science conditions must have been very, very specific because the organic tissue must have experienced a heating fast enough not to entirely destroy it, which is instead the most common occurrence, and then fast cool to turn it into glass. And that's the part that I had thought of initially. Like, if it was really that hot, wouldn't the brain just be destroyed along with all the other soft tissue? But to achieve these specific set of circumstances, the skull and the spine acted as protective layers, shielding the soft tissue within from a bit of the heat. The researchers wrote in their paper, the glass that formed as a result of such a unique process attained a perfect state of preservation of the brain and its microstructures. Giordano said that they found charcoal fragments in Herculaneum that supported their idea. These fragments experienced multiple heating events, and the highest temperatures were associated with an early, super hot ash cloud. The study shows that the killer at Herculaneum was an early, hot ash cloud. Giordano said that this highlights the importance of studying the behavior of ash clouds, as they are very hazardous and still very poorly studied and understood. And these set of circumstances of a particularly hot ash cloud probably did destroy part of his brain. After all, we're not talking about an entire perfectly preserved glass brain. We're talking about fragments, and some of them were only a couple of centimeters. Benjamin Andrews, a volcanologist at the Smithsonian who was not involved with the study, said that the team's findings were remarkable. He added that there's a huge story, a huge wealth of information contained in these little particles. Now, not everyone agrees with these new conclusions. Alexandra Morton Hayward, a forensic anthropologist at the University of Oxford, who was also not involved in the research, isn't convinced that the glassy material is parts of the man's brain. According to CNN, she maintains that soft tissue vitrification is incredibly unlikely, which I think even the researchers of this paper would probably agree with. For this to happen, it would have to be a perfect set of circumstances. His bones couldn't be vitrified because there was no liquid in them. Other soft tissues, like organs, were probably destroyed by the heat before they could cool down enough to turn to glass. Again, scientists believe that the skull gave just enough protection for his brain to allow this to happen. But the study co-author Pier Paolo Petrone, a forensic anthropologist, assured journalists that he felt that the custodian would feel nothing when his brain was flash glassified. They believed he died in his bed instantly from the impact of the hot volcanic ash surge. So I guess that's some comfort. I'll post a link in the description of the actual research paper if you guys want to take a look at it. I know it's kind of a dark story, but I just found this whole thing really intriguing. It's such a bizarre image. The idea of examining these fossilized remains and then finding what seems to be glass inside the skull. I'd be like them, like, whoa, what happened here? But it seems like for now they have an answer. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that vitrification of the brain in this scenario is possible? Or do you agree with Alexandra Morton Hayward that it is just too unlikely? After all, we haven't come across it before, or have we? And we just didn't know what we were looking at. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And on a personal note, I have been to both Pompeii and Herculaneum many moons ago when I was in college, and both places are amazing. It was incredible just walking through cities that were completely buried at one time and then completely unearthed. And they were like full cities, like running water, plumbing, stepping stones so you could cross the street without getting your feet muddy. And I could walk into people's homes and see like wallpaper-like designs on their walls. It was very real, very vivid, and yeah, I just highly recommend going if you get the chance. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.